Hey everybody, Mary and I are here. We are going to go over a couple of things that we think are really important for you to know for the new year. We both went to the contract changes class for brokers about a week and a half ago. And one of the big changes is that normally they release forms February 1st. And we have about 30 days to kind of do our training and understand what the changes are going to be before we actually have to start using them. This year, GAR has changed the license. So essentially, you're going to log in after January 1st, and all the new forms are going to be in place beginning January 1st. So they're going to be there before our contract class on January 17th. So that's why we wanted to take a minute and go over just like 2 or 3 of the changes that we felt like you might need to know ahead of time. One of the changes is going to be on the very front page under the closing and possession. As you can see here, basically what they have done is they have said they want you to tell them exactly how many days after the date of closing the seller is still going to have possession and exactly what time. And then every single time someone is not moving out at or before closing, you will need to attach the temporary occupancy agreement, even if it's for 1 day. And they do this on purpose. They've had some issues, and we've even had some issues with this. So we definitely want to start using the temporary occupancy agreement anytime the seller is not giving possession exactly at closing. And Mary had a couple other changes that she's going to tell you about.
Okay, and the one change that kind of stood out with me is on the community association disclosure form. And this is primarily when you're representing a seller. There's going to be a little extra step that you might want to do to make sure that your sellers are not going to be upset at closing. Because what's going to happen is that on the community association disclosure form, the sellers will be responsible for disclosing any and all HOA fees that exist. And they have to disclose that prior to binding agreement. So when you're representing a seller, either you or your seller would need to contact the HOA to determine and to advise of any fees prior to binding agreement. Otherwise, your seller will become responsible for anything that was not disclosed that come up at closing. So we've had some issues like this that we've actually addressed recently to this point where there was, I think, initiation fees that came up that were not disclosed. So in the future, going forward, we're going to ask you to work closely with your seller. If the seller doesn't do it, then you might want to contact the HOA. And when you think about it, this change really makes a lot of sense because the buyers are usually, the buyers and or the buyer's agent usually does not have access to that information, and the HOA is going to communicate directly with the seller. You're going to also notice that there are a couple more things that were added back to the disclosure, the seller's disclosure that were taken away before. So you'll see some things that come back on, termite inspection and things like this, even though I know that was added towards, I think, the middle of the year last year. All those types of things, there are a couple things that are going to be added back in. So be looking for those as well.
So we look forward to seeing you on January 17th at our 3-hour contracts review class. There are more changes that were made, but these were just the main ones that we wanted to make you aware of. And if you have any questions in the meantime, you know, you can always call our broker support line. The number is 678-804-2550, or you can always email our broker support email, which is broker@9321234.net. Thanks so much. Hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Happy holidays.